So I know what you're thinking, we have the M3 MacBook Airs, but where are the bloody iPads? Well, if I'm being honest guys, even I'm pretty clueless on this, but we do have some new details from Mr. Mark Gurman that shed light regarding the release, and it might also be hinting at an event. Let's talk about it. Essentially, Mr. Gurman in a new report mentions Apple's preparing a special build of iOS 17.4 for these iPads, so as a result, the release will be a little later during the end of March or early April. Now, Gurman obviously won't give us a specific date because he's always known to be pretty vague, but at least we have a time frame to go off. Now, why I think this could be suggesting an event is simply because why release the MacBook Air now if the iPads are not ready yet? Surely it would make much more sense to release everything in the same week as we predicted earlier, so the fact they dropped the MacBook Air now and are not releasing the iPads till the end of March or early April does suggest to me there could be an actual event for these new iPads. And unlike the MacBook Air, which is literally just the same MacBook with a new chipset, the iPad Pro, of course, is going to be the first redesign the iPad's getting since 2018. And yes, we have seen substantial upgrades via press releases in the past, like the OG 16-inch MacBook Pro and first generation AirPods Pro, but this new iPad is totally worthy of some stage time. The iPad Air isn't as major of an update and does kind of fall into the spec refresh category, but the new size option is something Apple might want to flex on stage. Also, I did make a video regarding new HomePod releases recently that you can check out in the icon above, and there I did mention there has been some code suggesting we could see a new HomePod with a display release as early as Q1 2024, so whilst there haven't been concrete rumors regarding this, unlike the iPads, I could see Apple releasing this at a spring event alongside the usual spring color for the iPhone. This altogether could be a decent hour-long event, but even if we don't get the new HomePod and the new iPhone color and it's just the new iPads, I could still see an event materializing. I mean, we just had a super short, scary, fast event that was 30 minutes, and that was just for some spec refreshes, and so for a new iPad that's actually visually different, heck yeah, that deserves an actual event. Of course, I do want to mention I'm simply a guy on YouTube who rambles about Apple without any source to actually validate my theories, and Gurman actually does seem to be sure there still won't be an event, so I shouldn't go against him, I guess. But FYI, he actually never saw the MacBook Air coming in the first place. He initially said there would be a new accessory releasing last week, and the MacBook Air really is not an accessory. But putting that aside, I won't argue with the fact Gurman is a very credible source, and there's a good chance I'm very wrong about this, and we get press releases for these new iPads. I've also seen some theorize that Apple might have released the MacBook Air earlier because there's a lot of bad press about them getting fines from the EU, so of course, the MacBook news was a form of distraction so that the media can focus on the new device. And yeah, I guess that makes sense, but I still find it a little weird that dropping the MacBook Air and the iPads this far apart. I don't know guys, my spider sense, which is probably wrong, is tingling and is thinking there's gonna be an event. But at the very least, we should be getting new iPads pretty soon, and if you're getting impatient, I can understand, but please, hang on there, these new iPads are coming very, 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 very soon. And actually, let's talk more about the specs of these new iPad models. So let's begin with the iPad Air 6, and if I'm being honest guys, Apple's basically updating the specs and calling it a day. It's going from Apple M1 to M2, which of course is going to give you slightly better performance. That's going to be completely wasted on iPadOS anyways. It's also going to get Wi-Fi 6E and Bluetooth 5.3 support, like other recent releases, so yay, I guess? Okay, I'm being a little mean. There is actually one big aspect with this refresh that I'm leaving out, and that of course is the fact there's no longer going to be one iPad Air. There's also going to be a new 12.9-inch size. In theory, launching this does make sense because I'm sure there's a decent chunk of consumers who want the big display experience the iPad Pro offers, but without the massive price tag, and so this should be adequate enough for most. But like I've mentioned many times on the channel, this won't exactly be a cheap iPad. You see, based on the fact the 12.9-inch iPad Pro used to be $200 more when it was using LCD like the 11-inch, there is a strong possibility the 12.9-inch iPad Air follows suit, and it starts at $799, which is very much iPad Pro territory. That's how much the 11-inch Pro goes for right now, and yes, I know the upcoming iPad Pros are going to get more expensive, but it's still a tough pill to swallow, guys. This will essentially be a 60Hz LCD iPad for $800, and so I really don't see the point in this. I mean, you can go on Apple's refurb site right now and you can find the M1 iPad Pro for around this price. And remember, that will get cheaper once the M3 model launches. And also the M2 iPad Pro is eventually going to find its way on the refurb site. So why would you buy this? And yes, I know many are going to argue the same thing regarding the iPhone 15 Plus and MacBook Air 15-inch. But at least with those products, there is some sort of advantage they offer. The Plus has, of course, the best battery life in the range, and the 15-inch Air is considerably thinner and lighter than a MacBook Pro. The 12.9-inch iPad Air, however, won't have better battery life than the Pro because it lacks a variable refresh rate, and while yes, it's called the iPad Air, there's actually leaks the iPad Pro is going to be thinner. So once again, I ask you guys, what's the point in this? You know what makes plain sense though? Subscribing to this channel, of course. I would greatly appreciate it, and it would bring you the latest commentary about the world of Apple right to your subscription box, so please consider it. It would be appreciated. We're trying to hit our next milestone of 16,000 subscribers, so join the saranbyte gang now. Anyways, if you're still wondering why Apple's launching this new bloody iPad, it's clear to me that Apple's just creating the perfect ladder of choices, so that if you go into an Apple store thinking you want the iPad Air, you're gonna walk out with the iPad Pro because it's only $200 more, and so you end up getting the highest end device, and that's gonna make Timothy very happy. I guess it's not all bad news because this obviously will eventually go and sell, and maybe it could be $650 in a few months, in which case that's a pretty solid deal. But the only advice I will give you guys is that you should not buy this at retail price. Oh, by the way, completely forgot about this, though you probably don't care anyways. But the iPad Air is going to have a fancy new camera module that's very similar to the one rumored for iPhone 16. But yes, that should be the only visual change. Even the dimensions are going to be very similar to existing iPads. And I'm hoping the colors are more vibrant this time, but a part of me thinks Apple believes muted colors exude premiumness, and so they're most likely going to give us yet another range of colors that look grey in most lighting. Moving on to more exciting news, we have the M3 iPad Pro. So this has been long rumored, guys, as a radical upgrade for the Pros, considering they haven't changed much since 2018. And the big change is, of course, going to be OLED. OLED is something we're already familiar with on the iPhone and the Apple Watch, and it's going to give these iPads a ton of benefits like increased brightness, higher contrast ratio, lower power consumption, and also LTPO tech so the display can go down to 10 Hz to save battery life. Though I have long theorized that Apple is going to bring the always-on display to the iPad Pro so that of course it can support standby, and so if that's the case, it should be able to go down to 1 Hz. And notice how I said iPads in plural, because yes, it's heavily rumored the 11-inch won't be left out, and it's also getting OLED just like the bigger size, which hasn't been the case since 2020, so yeah, that's very nice. Not only this, but Apple's using the same LiPo tech they used on the 15 Pro to shrink the bezels, and so the new size options are going to be 11.1 inches and 13 inches, and it seems the actual bodies aren't going to be that much larger. However, they are ever so slightly different that you will have to buy a new Magic Keyboard, which isn't fun. Also, what's worrying is that, as I mentioned earlier, the iPad Pros are getting even thinner. It's going to be 5mm thin, which is a good 1mm thinner than the already very thin iPad Pros we have today. And let me remind you, those already bend pretty easily, so I very much worry about the durability of these iPads. I guess Mr. Jerry Rig Everything will have to put that to the test. Now, all these changes are not going to be cheap for Apple, especially OLEDs, and so a consistent rumor has been the fact these Pros are getting more expensive. I've been pretty mixed on this. No one really likes a price increase in the first place, let's be honest, but especially for the iPad Pro, where it's already hard enough justifying today's retail price, these getting even $100 price hikes would be a very tough sell. So I do wonder what final pricing will be for these iPads. There are some ludicrous rumors out there saying it could be $1,500, but hopefully it's not that bad. Obviously, we're also getting the typical spec refresh with this iPad, so of course, it's going to get the relatively new M3 chipset, which is going to be utterly overkill. There's also talk about MagSafe wireless charging, which I'm pretty iffy on. I'd much rather have the Mac version of MagSafe. And also, there's still talk regarding a new Magic Keyboard with a larger trackpad an aluminium top casing, as well as a 3rd generation Apple Pencil. Anyways, let me know your thoughts in the comments, make sure to like and subscribe for more content like this, and thank you for watching.